Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today we have a Roads Not Taken special Trump Exhibit D. This series of videos goes over kind of weekly recaps of news that was either not reported, underreported, or just wasn't reported on the main channel. There is one development that is probably being reported here before you hear it in other places. In Georgia, which is where we will start as far as the cases go, Cheesebro is seeking dismissal of the entire Georgia indictment. His attorney filed a motion alleging that a special prosecutor who was brought in, Nathan Wade, didn't properly file the oath of office. Basically, the motion alleges that Wade filled out the paperwork, but it wasn't filed properly. The motion says that that makes all of Wade's work void as a matter of law. It's important to understand that Wade presented to the grand jury. So if that argument was to be accepted, then the indictment would be thrown out. Now, I have talked to a few lawyers about this. Only one is really up to speed on Georgia, which is kind of super important at this point. But all of them said the same thing. Basically, it's embarrassing for the DA, but it is incredibly doubtful that this would lead to the entire indictment being tossed. The words grasping at straws, stuff like that were used. But also, it is embarrassing that this little technical thing wasn't taken care of. The DA, in that case, has proposed a March 4th trial date for Trump and the others, except for Cheesebro and Powell, who are set to go on October 23rd, as long as nothing changes. There is reporting that multiple Trump co-defendants have now officially been offered plea deals in the Georgia case. So far, we only know about the one who has accepted. Multiple is pretty vague. We don't know how many were offered deals. The DA has indicated that a former New York police commissioner would be called to testify, get a subpoena. The attorney for the police commissioner basically said that without immunity, they're going to take the fifth over and over and over again. At this point, there is no sign as to whether or not the DA is willing to offer that. But it kind of seems likely because the commissioner wasn't in the indictment, wasn't charged in the indictment. So it seems like an ask of immunity is probably not out of the question. Okay, moving on to New York. If you missed it, a limited gag order was put in place after a Trump social media post that was apparently made while Trump was in the courtroom that it talked about a member of court staff. The judge is not having that. So that was pretty big news. In other news, Trump is appealing the decision from the judge saying that he and his circle committed fraud. That was obviously coming. Trump also said he would testify when asked. Now, keep in mind, this was not a courtroom thing. There's no obligation to do this. But he said, yes, I will at the appropriate time. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to say that's a really horrible idea. I cannot imagine an attorney recommending, allowing, not doing everything within their power to stop the former president from testifying. On a list of really bad ideas, that's the worst. He is not a person who seems like they would testify well. It seems like something that his legal teams would want to avoid at pretty much any cost. But Trump did say that. Okay, now moving on to the documents case. This is the federal one. DOJ filed saying that Trump's team was trying to delay the case by weaponizing rules when it comes to how secret documents get used in situations like this. I read through it. Yeah, what they're asking is unusual. In fact, I've never heard of anything like that. But that argument is being made. We'll see how that plays out. In the D.C. election interference case, Trump's recent statements about General Milley, and, well, a lot of people really, but General Milley in particular, are going to be likely to bolster the special counsel's argument when it comes to the request for a narrow gag order on Trump in that case. I would imagine now that kind of the gates are open, I would imagine there's probably going to be more gag orders put on Trump, because he will likely, as pressure mounts, become more and more and more erratic. And a lot of those statements are not the kind judges want. So I would imagine there's going to be more of them. There will be a hearing on that in the D.C. case on October 16th. Now, moving on to wider-ranging news from Trump world, and there's a bunch of it. The Supreme Court of the United States rejected John Eastman's appeal. Eastman wanted to stop Congress from getting their hands on 10 emails he sent to Trump that he said, I believe he was claiming that they were covered by executive privilege. The Supreme Court rejected it, but also kind of moot. From my understanding, the House committee, the Jan 6 committee, already had all of this. So I'm not really following this one. An IRS contractor was charged with stealing Trump's tax returns, and a whole bunch of other people. Those returns were, we assume, those returns were later leaked to the press. Trump's tax returns wound up in the hands of the press after they were allegedly stolen by this person. The irony of somebody being charged with stealing government documents about Trump is not lost on me. Despite all of his entanglements, Trump's campaign reportedly raised more than $45 million during the third quarter of 2023. So there's that. An interesting part of it is that a whole lot of this amount could be used in a primary, like a very large portion, whereas a lot of the other candidates, the amount of money they have to spend in the primary is pretty limited. Rudy is reportedly suing Biden for an unspecified amount of money because Biden apparently called him a Russian pawn during an October 2020 debate. I guess Rudy is saying that cost him podcast listeners and stuff like that. So there are some monetary damages, in theory. We'll see how that plays out. In an appearance, Trump was just kind of doing what he's been doing lately and talking about random things. And he went off on this little side tangent. And he said the media would, quote, say Trump didn't get anything from Mexico. Well, there was no legal mechanism. I said they're going to help fund this wall, but there was no legal mechanism. How do you go to a country, you say, by the way, I'm building a wall, hand us a lot of money? That acknowledgement of how just absolutely ridiculous that campaign promise was, and that talking point, Mexico is going to pay for the wall and all that stuff. This was apparently just met with shrugs by the people that he told it to, his supporters. It was surprising to me that he said this and just admitted, yeah, there was no way to actually do that. I was just making that up. It surprised me that he said it, and it surprised me that literally nobody cared. It does appear that a lot of people, to include his supporters, seem to just be very accustomed to less than accurate statements from the man. They just kind of shrugged their shoulders. Now, there is undoubtedly going to be some more news today. It certainly appears like it. So I will keep you posted. If you end up hearing about the Cheesebro motion to have the indictment dismissed over on the main channel, that's just because a whole bunch of people sent in messages and it concerned them. So that you may hear again, just as a little bit of a heads up. But that is all the information we have on this topic for right now, and the right information will make all the difference. Y'all have a good night.